I'm Sean Morris. I am in the English department. I have a lot of different areas of specialization like linguistics and screenwriting, history of the English language, medieval language and literature, leadership classes, superhero classes. So that's me, but it's also in some ways the department. Everybody wears a lot of different hats and they teach all kinds of different things, which I think gives people a lot of flexibility because we can offer a lot more classes than you normally would with a small department, and every department on campus is small. But also the energy of it, like all these different interests and all the interconnections that you can make.
Hello, I'm Douglas Manuel. Hello. I'm a little bit more new, but right now my specialties would be African American literature and creative writing, especially poetry, but also creative nonfiction and fiction. I joke around that any kind of way that you can pay me for scribbling, I'll do it. And so I think that's really good for our students to think about because everything in our major is super employable. One of the things that I want to emphasize is when I was an undergrad, I thought, oh my goodness, I would talk to my family, be like, you have an English major, what are you going to do? And it's like, I think I was fine. So I think you guys will be too.
On one hand, things like skills that a lot of people talk about, and then other goals as well that are maybe harder to define. So skills, things like communication, both spoken and written, creative thinking, so creative writing as well as analytical writing. I think one of the biggest skills that maybe isn't always defined, and the way you were just saying, like, oh, what can you do with an English major, has this reputation as being something that's kind of fluffy, but I don't think that that's what it is. It's actually something that works at thinking about things that are complex, right? So you take a natural science class and you ask very specific questions with very specific answers, and there are particular tools that you have for getting that. Whereas in English, you're reading a novel, hundreds of pages, and it's got all these different details and characters and then things they have, what they're eating, what they're wearing, and there's a plot in there, a story, a connection with historical events and positions sometimes. And so that's where people can make the mistake of thinking it's fluffy because, oh, we just read this thing and it's not really about anything. But it's actually about very many things. And how do you develop the skill set of like looking at a large amount of information and then weaving threads through that to make sense of, oh, well, there's this thing that makes sense, or here's this idea which raises these other questions that aren't even in the text, but they're connected to the text. So when I think of the skills that we do in English, that's like a big one that I think about, is the ability to think about complex issues and find multiple answers, all of which, are a little bit different from each other, but contribute to really getting a solid sense of what it's about, rather than a simple answer, which is not easy to find in some of the things that we look at. But there are other things too. I'm thinking about things that, what draws people to this, personal development
and being able to see yourself and kind of confirm your own feelings in the literature. I think that's what made me love English literature right from the get-go, and made me love reading, is like being able to see a character in an individual psyche and like see myself in there and be like, oh wait, like I have this feeling and it exists in somebody else. I'm not this weirdo all alone for myself. And I think that's another way it builds community. And I think another goal, and this is kind of piggybacking over what you're talking about, is this idea of critical thinking and thinking in a nuanced manner, right? That like you're not just gonna think in binaries, like let's get rid of that logical fallacy, no, right? And so getting people to push past those kind of easy thinking and honestly think for that extra idea. I always tell students that one extra idea might be your paper project. It's really going to blow your mind and like be your future senior project or something like that.
When I read this question that you sent me ahead of time, I started thinking, well, who do I know? Because this is another thing that comes up, and you think, oh, English major is useless, when actually it's useful for many things, which is why it's hard to answer the question. So there's some obvious things that lots of people do. You go on and you teach things. You teach English or something like that. People go to graduate school, but it doesn't have to be for English. They go to law school, they go to med school, they go to business school. The kinds of things that are done in here can lead to all kinds of other career paths. Sometimes that involves doing more school for more specialization, but not always. So I'm thinking people have done things from, well, creative writing, which you think, oh, it's not employable. Well, actually it is. It's a hard path, but it's a path where there are actually jobs. People have done things in journalism, they've done things actually writing movies and novels. I know some students who've gone into game design and things like that, because you think, well, game design, you need to do computers. Well, yeah, you do. Or art, yeah, you do. But there's also the story element, which is huge. but also things like people who've gone into insurance. They just got the job, and then it turned out they were this superstar because they had all these generalizable skills that nobody else at the company had. And suddenly it's like, well, we need you for this, we need you for that. Things like businesses and marketing, anything that has to do with interacting with people or communications. Somebody got a job at Blizzard, the video game company, writing like some of their internal documents. That they needed somebody to do that, and there was an English major here who could do that. People have gone to things like law enforcement, and what else have I left off the list? Probably 100 other things. It's just so generalizable that there are some easy, obvious choices, but it's not at all that you have to do those things.
Yeah.
And you had some things we were talking about before that we were adding to this.
Well, I was thinking just like the nonprofit scene and like being able to like get internships through that. I think if you can communicate and critically think and closely read things, you can always be employable. And those are the three things that I think our department does probably better than, no offense to these other departments, but no, like better than any department on the campus. Like we are able to help people close read documents so they won't get duped, and that they can help others not get duped at a company. We can help people be able to communicate successfully, and again, back to the critical thinking. So that makes the whole world open. Like most of my friends either go into like, who are also creative writers who don't right now either go into marketing or either go into law. But that's like, again, just the iceberg of all the things, the tip of the iceberg rather than all the things that you can do.
Ooh, take a class.
Yeah, take a class.
Any
and
class.
Come up there. Yeah, and come up there. We're all, up there on the second floor of this is Hoover, right? Is this Hoover?
This is Hoover.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. See, I'm new. But yeah, come to the second floor. Most of our offices are up there, and I think Sean's, Dr. Morse is exactly right. Take a class yourself.
Yeah.
And we're always all being everybody's biggest cheerleader in the department. So we'll be like, take Dr. Morris's class. It's going to be amazing. And then we'll
Take Goodman
connect.
Will's class.
Right? And then we plug
I think
you
we
into
both
the
said that
community.
when we sat in on each other's classes last semester.
Literally.
I said, take his classes. And then you were like, take his classes.
Yeah, so
no,
we're all
take
on the
his.
squad, right? We're all on the squad, all in the community. So like, we'll plug you in.
I think it's a great idea. I'll add one footnote to that. Sometimes because it's COVID, these hallways are emptier than they have usually been in the past. So you might walk by and think like, well, nobody's here. That's not normal, but sometimes it feels like it's normal these days. So if you do come up to talk to somebody and we're not there, you can find our emails by looking in the schedule of classes and things like that. There is also waiting in your email inbox, perhaps in a junk folder somewhere, an email from the English department that we send out every semester before registration. So there'll be a new one coming out in the next few weeks.
Yep.
And it details the classes that are being offered in the next semester in a better way than they are in the catalog. Right. So if you go to the schedule of classes, you have this nice little concise shopping list. Oh, these things, that gives you the title. If you click on it, it will sometimes show you the catalog description. But those descriptions are short and general because different people might teach those classes, and then they can add new things. So that newsletter actually has, sometimes I write like half a page about the class I'm doing. And also you see the person's name, and then you can find their email, and then you can write to us and say, I'm really interested in, and actually if you want to test, write about something totally bizarre.
Yes.
I'm really interested in the eating habits of wombats at night. Because the chances are somebody in the department is like, actually,
you'll get
before
doing
I got my
actually.
degree in English, I spent a year living in the outback in Australia researching wombat diets. There's going to be some way to connect it. It's one of the powers of English is connecting anything and everything.
That's why we all do so many tangents in class. That's why we all do so many tangents. And I think the only other thing that I'll add is that we're all like producing work like outside of Whittier all the time too. So we're all very Googleable. So like you'll be able to like look us up that way and be able to talk to us too. And that's always a cool thing to do too. I wish I'd have done that more in undergrad, because then you can find out like what are the interests your professor has and if that aligns with your interests as well too. So then you can learn about wombats, Bagdo, Little Joe without knowing it.
I don't actually know anything about that, but I would find a way to connect it to pick any book in English literature. Like there's going to be a way it connects.
Agreed.
Awesome.
We're here for you. Any kind of way, like honestly, our department has it.
Awesome. So thank you so much for meeting with us.
Thank you.